In this video, I'm going to talk about 17 different ways that you can take action on your personal finances today as a Canadian here in 2024 to improve your financial life now and for the rest of the year and hopefully well beyond that. I have ideas for people who are just getting started and for people that are a little bit more intermediate and some more advanced things that you could take a look at. So wherever you are on the financial literacy spectrum or on your financial journey at all, I think that there's going to be something here for you to take a look at and improve your financial life this year. So the first thing that you could do is set up an automatic transfer to either your savings or investing accounts. This is something that often gets overlooked when people are new to investing, building emergency funds and things like that, is that you can just automate it and you can get all of the discipline out of the way and you don't have to think about it anymore, because that's half of the battle with learning something new, is that you actually have to have the discipline and the understanding and so on and so forth. But you can automate it. So if you have a savings account at the bank, every major bank in Canada will let you automatically transfer from your checking account over to your savings account, and that way you can build up some savings automatically. Number two is kind of a connection to that, is building an emergency fund. An emergency fund is just the idea that you have some cash set aside for when an emergency happens. I always recommend that people set up specific rules for themselves about what an emergency actually is, so that next time there's a cold snap in January, you don't think that a trip to Mexico is actually an emergency. These would be things like losing your job or having a medical incident, even a major pet injury or something like that, where your dog needs surgery, something crazy that's really expensive and unplanned for. Make your list of things that would be emergencies and then access the money if any of those things do happen. The amount that I recommend that people have for emergencies varies based on the stability of their employment, how much they spend, what their expenses are, if there's two incomes in the home, something like that. But if you're really just getting started, aim for getting $1,000 in an account just completely separate from your checking account and start from there. Next item for beginners would be tracking your spending. Budgeting is one thing that everybody hates budgeting. I hate budgeting. I don't really like doing it. But tracking your spending is really important so that you can actually see where your money is going every month. And sometimes you might be surprised and you might come up with something that you realize that you didn't realize you're spending money on, or there's certain parts of your budget that are larger than you anticipated. And so this will allow you to make better decisions with your money once you actually know where it's going, so then you can figure out where it's going to go in the future. Number 4, you can make an additional credit card payment. So if you're someone that's working on paying off credit card debt is the thing that's going to kill most people's financial life, because the interest on that debt is so high, it is outrageous. So that if you are able to pay one additional payment, more than you typically would, that will really help you get ahead financially, and you can do that today. If you've got $50, if you've got $10, whatever, put it on your credit card and reduce that interest cost so that you don't get killed by your credit card. Number 5, if you've already gone beyond some of those things like building an emergency fund and paying off credit card debt and things like that, consider opening a tax-free savings account. You don't have to actually put money into it at this stage necessarily, but just have one open so that you can use one in the future. I talk about TFSAs on my podcast all of the time. I recommend that people use them for investing, not just parking cash, but just opening the account and having it ready to go will be the first step. So that's something that you could do if you've never opened a tax-free savings account before. Number 6 is about creating a will. Now, this might sound a little bit more advanced, but this is something that's really, really important for anybody that has loved ones that depend on them. If you own anything, if you own a house, if you own a business, especially if you do that with a spouse or a partner, having a will makes sure that your wishes are followed if and when you pass away. We're all going to die at some point, so a will is just something that ensures that your wishes are being followed. Number 7, that goes hand in hand with this one, is having life insurance. Term life insurance is very, very affordable. Again, if you have any sort of debt, if anyone relies on your income, I would highly recommend that you take a look at getting some life insurance. Term insurance is very, very cheap, and it can really make a difference if the worst should happen to you or someone in your own family that you're depending on for their income. Moving on to some things in the intermediate stage, I would take a look at increasing your automatic savings, assuming you've already done that or you've already got that going on in your life already. Increasing your automatic payments either to your savings account for the next vacation or your next car or whatever, or to your long-term investments to your TFSAs or RSPs. That would be a great idea, especially with inflation. A lot of people set up their investing to be $100 here, $500 there, and then as inflation ticks up and the cost of living goes up and your income ticks up and increases along with that, your lifestyle will change, and so you need to be investing accordingly. So consider increasing your automatic contributions to your investment and savings accounts. Next one in the intermediate stage would be automating your bill payments. This is my type of budgeting, is setting up automatic payments for as many things as I reasonably can. So if you have any bills that you can automatically pay without thinking about it, you're never gonna miss one, and there's never gonna be any uncomfortable conversations about who paid this and who missed that in your household. Automating your bill payments is a really great way to get ahead and keep your financial life real simple. The third intermediate thing that you could do is take a look at your spending. So remember when you went back and you were tracking your spending for the last few months, take a look and see if there's any unused subscriptions in there. Video streaming services is the big one these days. So if you have anything that you aren't using, I would consider canceling it. But take it the next step further and don't just cancel it, because saved money on spending less will end up just getting spent somewhere else later on. So I would recommend that you do two things for this one. You cancel the subscription and you take whatever that payment is and you increase automatic savings or automatic debt repayment along with it, or else the money will just be spent somewhere else. Number 4 of intermediate things that you could take a look at is setting up a debt priority plan. So if you have multiple debts, you might have a mortgage, you might have student loans, you might have a car payment, you might have credit cards, any number of different things. All of them will have different terms and different minimum payments and different interest rates. Consider setting up a hierarchy so that you actually have a plan for paying these off that is either the most efficient in terms of paying off the lowest balance first or the highest interest first. Either one is fine. You need to have a system and stick with a system. So paying off debt in a structured, systematized way would be something that I would highly recommend that people do if you're carrying multiple debts with different interest rates. Calculating your savings rate is another valuable thing that you can do, because your savings rate is the thing that's most critical for actually determining how well you're going to be able to retire and how much you're going to have in the future to be able to spend and support your family and support yourself after you've done working. So savings rate is something that's really important to know. I recommend that people start saving at least 10 to 15% of their income if they can for the long term. It's not always possible, stage of life, it all matters. If you've got kids at home, it's not always possible to do that, but that's a target that you could aim for. So looking up your income and figuring out how much you're saving and investing for the future, figuring out what that rate is as a percentage will really guide your decision making when you are investing for the long term. Last one in the intermediate stage here is setting up a power of attorney. This would go hand in hand with getting a will done. At the same time, you could consider adding a power of attorney to the documents that your lawyer will help you put together. A power of attorney steps in a situation where you're still alive, but you're unable to make decisions for yourself. Sometimes we see this happen when people get into accidents or they're sick or elderly, all these different periods of time where people are no longer able to make decisions for themselves. Setting up a spouse is very, very common for this kind of thing. That just protects you and ensures that what you want to have happen and all the things that you need to have happen can be taken care of by someone else if you're not able to do so. Here's a few things that I put in the advanced category. They're not necessarily advanced, but I think that all the other things should hopefully be taken care of before you consider some of these things. So you might disagree with me on some of those, but that's okay. The next one is setting up an RESP or RDSP for your kids. I'm a believer of the oxygen mask principle. When you go on the airplane and they say put on your own mask before helping somebody else, I'm a big believer in that. And so all of the other things that I talked about already are things that you can do to improve your own personal financial life before you worry about a very specific part of your kid's life. There are lots of programs that will help your kids pay for university education. There's very few programs that will help you cover an emergency, pay off your debt, save for your retirement, all the other things that we talked about already. There's just no substitute for getting those things right first before worrying about you get an education fund for your kids. And our DSP is a bit different, and that is to provide funding for children who are disabled. You can get it as an adult as well, but many times people will set that up for their kids. There's different grants available for each of these programs, but they're really great to use for saving for either education in the case of our ESP, or any sort of expenses for a child who's disabled and might not have the same opportunity to earn an income and save for the future, like those of us who are fortunate enough to not be in that situation dealing with a disability. Next advanced thing that you could take a look at is evaluating your investment portfolio using a tool like Morningstar. Most people don't really have a good handle on what their investment portfolio is. You can take a look at things like factors and costs and underlying holdings and all these different things. There's a lot of cool things that you can look at your portfolio. Having a better idea of what it is, and specifically what it is not, is going to be a valuable exercise to go through once you have all of the nuts and bolts kind of figured out on the basics of your financial life and your investing life. So taking a look at some more advanced things will help you better compare your portfolio and your decisions and your strategy to those, say, of an index of something that's actually relevant to you. So for example, if you are a balanced investor, meaning you have about 60% in stocks, 40% in bonds, and you're always comparing to the S&P 500, well, this is ridiculous because it is a completely different thing that you're investing in. So using a tool like Morningstar will help you make more reasonable comparisons for your portfolio that you already have. Next one in this advanced stage is that once you've taken a look at your portfolio and maybe done some analysis of what it is and what it is not, take a look and see if there's opportunities for optimizing to either simplify or reduce costs. Those are the two things that I often take a look at for clients when we're looking at one's portfolio. Complexity does not add value. It is the worst, but people have a really strong draw towards complexity, especially in their financial life, for whatever reason. I'm not sure, but the more simple and the more low cost you can build your portfolio, the better. When I say low cost, I don't mean the difference between 0.01% of an MER or something like that. But if we're going from very high cost to a reasonable cost, that would be a good transition to make. The last thing that you can consider for improving your financial life today is take a look at your financial situation and consider giving away money to somebody else who needs it more than you do. I strongly believe that giving back to others is a great way to have money's grip loosen on us. It's so easy to become obsessed and completely engrossed in our finances and worry and all these things, and there's never enough. And then you look around in your community, and I don't know where you are watching from, but I promise you it's just like mine. You look outside and there's always somebody that could use a leg up more than you could. There's someone who's hungry, there's someone who's cold out there. And so look around in your community and consider making a donation. The reason that would improve your financial life is, one, I personally, from a psychological standpoint, I think there's just something to that of just, it's something freeing that you're able to give money away to somebody else and it feels good. But practically speaking, you also get a tax credit for it. When you give to a registered charity, you are able to get a receipt at the end of the year and you get a little bit of that money back so that your donation actually benefits you in a real sense from reducing your tax bill every year. That's it for my list. I'm sure there's 100 other things that you could consider for improving your financial life today, but these are a few of mine. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. I'm Evan Neufeld. I'm a certified financial planner working with people just like you to help you make better decisions with your money and improve your financial life every single day. Thanks for watching. You can listen to the Canadian Money Roadmap podcast every Wednesday on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or wherever you find podcasts, or find more videos like this right here on YouTube. Thanks for watching.